Yo, what's good YouTube? It's boardzy, and it has been way too long since I made content about everybody's favorite peripheral mouse pads. So this is going to be a roundup featuring the Pulsar X Lethal Gaming Gear Hyperion, the new Zowie pads, and then a few others that I've liked that have came through recently. So yeah, going to get right into it with the Hyperion. And this came to be because Pulsar wanted to make a high quality pad for enthusiasts and lethal gaming gear. They knew how to do that. But in terms of the characteristics of this pad, it plays in a very interesting way. I would consider this a faster speed pad in a very similar category to the Artisan Zero. So if you consider the Zero control, you'll consider this control as well. In terms of the surface, if you just feel it, there's nothing that seems especially speedy about it, but the way this surface is optimized for low static and low dynamic friction, it's just it feels very open. The glide isn't dense whatsoever. A good comparison is the Artisan Zero rather than the Saturn Pro, and I would say the surface, it feels a bit less fuzzy on your arm. I wouldn't say it's directly smoother. So I would say the biggest difference is going to be the dynamic friction. With the Zero, it just feels like there's a bit more resistance from the pad and somewhat less of the open feeling that I described with the Hyperion. But yeah, they're, like I said, in a similar speed range. I haven't put much time on the Blitz since getting the Hyperion, but I remember that to be a bit more rough than the Hyperion. But honestly, this is a surface type that's very saturated, but I am happy that it's at least very distinct from the Saturn Pro, which is definitely on the true control side of a control pad, whereas this is pushing the speed limits, so to speak. Wow, that was so corny. I didn't even try to do that. Yeah, as for how this pad plays, I really enjoyed it in Fortnite. It does have a soft base. I would say it's honestly around the same level of plushness as an Artisan Soft, but for some reason, like, even if I put in a bit more pressure, there's still a very like balanced and even feeling to the glide. And I'm not trying to say that there's no X and Y difference. The Y axis is definitely a bit more stable and controlled. That's something I've personally come to like for Fortnite. I mean, I've just been kind of dealing with it forever, but the X axis on this pad just feels so open. I mean, it's a word I keep using, but if you get the pad and you feel just how low the initial friction is for an otherwise pretty controlled surface, you'll understand what I'm saying. So I would say there's adequate stopping power. It's just a safe pad for every game. At $50 for this 490 by 420 size, is it like really bringing anything new to the market? Not quite, but Pulsar is pretty good global availability, so if it's just much cheaper to get this than some other premium pads, there's not really much wrong with it. I don't think it's affected by humidity much, but it does seem to play a bit faster when it's colder in my room, just as most cloth pads do. But yeah, that could be adding to my experience with the speed. The soft version is honestly fine with dot skates as long as you don't put too much pressure in. But like if you're putting pressure towards the back of the mouse, like really scraping into the pad, that probably will not be an ideal experience. Yeah, whether it's with stock skates, Magic Ice, the X-Ray pad lineup, I had all around a pretty fast experience with this pad for something with a more traditional controlled surface. So I really can't say enough good things about it. I can't really say anything about the long-term durability, but I know using it on and off for around the course of a month, there have been no slow spots or inconsistencies that have developed. And yeah, next up is going to be Zowie's new lineup, starting with the H-SR-SE. You might be like, oh, isn't this the G-SR-SE? No. The H indicates the larger size. So this is a 500 by 500 square GSR-SE. The day has come. This is the same updated surface that they've been using since the Rouge or whatever. So it does have the improved humidity resistance, which just feels like better speed or just more consistency. But yeah, as opposed to the Hyperion, which I kept saying was a very open weave, this definitely does feel a bit more dense in the movements, but it still has like a relatively similar level of speed. It's a bit more controlled, but it's like you could easily swap from one pad to the other and perform the same. At least that's how it is for me in Fortnite and most aiming scenarios. Both of these, I mean, every pad mentioned so far, all two of them, are just all-arounder surfaces, and the GSR-SE, I mean, I can't even pretend to talk much about this. They also didn't change the base. It's still the SR foam, but they did add like an anti-slip backing texture, and it's fine. Like, as the case has always been, this is going to be a bit more firm, harder of a base than other pads, so don't expect like the plushness of an Artisan X Soft. My only issue really is that I cannot get the base to lay entirely flat. I don't remember if it was like this out of the box or if it got fucked over in my mousepad stack, but I mean, at $50, you would like to see it flat packed, but I'm pretty sure this is not flat packed. But yeah, all in all, this is just the new H-SR-SE refresh. It is incrementally better. This is kind of why I don't review mouse pads. Not because I hate this or I think it's bad. It's just like it's the fucking H-SR-SE. You either get it, if you don't get it by now, you're not going to make it. On the opposite end of the spectrum, there is this, the Zowie TR. This is the H-TR because, once again, it is the 500 by 500 size. And what really makes this pad unique is it's the first Zowie pad to have an incredibly soft base. And this pad, it's not the typical 4 millimeters thick that most extra soft base pads are. But I don't think that really affects anything in real world use. You're not going to feel like you're bottoming the pad out, presuming you're using some type of full-size skates. Like dots are just awful on this pad. Like this is one of these pads that I do not recommend dots whatsoever. You can just hear the like scraping sound versus Magic Ice where it's completely quiet. And this pad, it's just a bit too slow for me with a bit too much plushness. I would compare this to like the Type 99 X Soft rather than the Zero X Soft. And honestly, like for the price, if you want a controlled pad with an X-Soft base, it's not awful. Like Zowie, they make a high quality surface. It just doesn't play the way I want. Like I would much rather use the H-SR-SE than this. But I understand some people are looking for true control. And yeah, there was a point in time where I was matching brands. I had the Zowie S2 and I was using this mouse pad. So this is a heavier mouse on a more controlled mouse pad. I was using like donut skates at the time and it fucking performed great. So even though the TR isn't like my type of pad or would be my #1 pick, it's still just a very safe, comfortable feeling pad. But if you're somebody who just hates soft, plushy surfaces, this is not going to be for you. Zowie describes a locked-in feeling because like when you do put a bit of pressure, it just feels like your mouse is on a lower level than the rest of the pad, and you're kind of just like pushing up against that as the resistance. And yeah, it's obviously the mechanic for most softer based pads, but Zowie advertises a quick rebound with the TR base, and what that gets you is pretty much when you stop applying pressure, there's just like a faster reset. So this doesn't really feel muddy or too slow in terms of micro adjustments, but I just find the dynamic friction and overall speed, like when making large swipes, to be slower than I want. So it's an interesting pad, somewhat innovative, shocking even to see Zowie make a softer based pad. But yeah, now they also made the GSR3, but I just don't care, guys. You gotta throw me a bone. This is going to be the Padsmith Genesis Pro. Padsmith sent me out a number of pads, but this is the one that I think was really the best. And with this, you get a speedier surface. There's really no texture at all. This, like, it almost feels like it has a laminated film. A truly like smooth feeling on your arm, like it has a cool feel to it. The initial friction, I wouldn't even say it's as low as the Hyperion, so it definitely is like medium amount of initial friction. Speed and the way this plays is more influenced by the weight of your mouse and the skates you have on than anything else in this video. You see like the OP1 with stock skates, it will provide you a pretty controlled experience dynamically. It still does feel very smooth, but not as quick as you would get on a rated mid, let's say. But yeah, when I use my Hot ES Ultra with these Jade Air dots, it plays really quickly, and there's just like very little resistance from the pad itself. In some instances, like if you're doing figure eights or just switching directions, you can feel a bit of tug and texture from the surface, which is not something that I really enjoy with firm bases and smooth surfaces. Like if I'm gonna be getting texture, a lot of feedback on my skates, I'd rather have something like a Hien or a Key 83 surface, but it's really just preference. If you want a firm, speedier pad where the speed is going to be really determined by the skates and the mouse that you're using, you could quite enjoy this depending on the combo you're using. But yeah, I would not say that this is outright better than the Lamzu Energon, the Infinity Mice Speed Pad, the Artisan Radiant, of course, but this is an option in that category of smooth speed surfaces. And yeah, it has not worn down on me yet. I haven't used it a ton, of course, but it does feel like the type of surface that like after 6 months of hard use, I could see some slow spots developing. They also do make a non-pro version at $35, which they did send out. I did not really enjoy that surface, like just the texture feeling, but it is cheaper. This is a $50 pad. I actually did enjoy like the art and the design. I'm big into black and white designs, but yeah, this is not like the #1 pad on the market or anything. And yeah, last pad I'm going to mention in this video is the Onda Pelz from the Whale. Love him or hate him, he makes mouse pads, and this is a really interesting, surprisingly affordable controlled hybrid pad. So if you're somebody who's ever used a Hien and you just think, oh, I wish it was a bit slower dynamically, I wish the surface was a bit less abrasive, I wish there was less texture on my skates, I would normally be like, you're a beta. But in this case, it just plays very well. And yeah, at some point after a few weeks of enjoying the Pelz, I just picked up my Key 83 and I enjoyed the quicker speed of that. Like there were really points where I was playing Fortnite. One thing interesting about this is there's a very minimal X and Y difference. It's just equally slow on both axes. And yeah, of course, something like the Maya X at 45 grams will play quicker than the XM2 at 60. But yeah, I was able to use this pad. It feels like a very serious, performance-focused, high-quality, really just great for the price pad. So there's not much for me to criticize aside from the fact that I just don't enjoy the controlled hybrid experience as much as I do a slightly quicker one like I am offered on the Key 83. And yeah, now I'm just going to quickly touch on the Key 83, which I have been using a lot since like people started getting them. I saw the initial batch of reviews come out. I was like, you know, why did I stop using this? And compared to something like the Pelz definitely has a somewhat dense, like high stopping power, high control element feel to it. But the Key 83, lower initial friction, more texture, which in my opinion leads to like a quicker glide, but still like really adequate stopping ability that you get on Artisan's hybrid pads like the Hien, the Key 83, the Otsu. Yeah, just in general, there's not a lot for me to say about the Key 83. These past few weeks, it's definitely been one of my most used pads along with the Hyperion. And then I obviously put some time on the Zowie pads, the Kurosan Shogun, which I just don't have enough time on to review. But yeah, there are some other mouse pads set to come out soon. If you guys have any questions, review recommendations, let me know in the comments below. But yeah, I just wanted to cover some mouse pads that I've been putting off. Peace out, like and sub, shocking.